Timothy Hargrove had spent 15 years turning people into stepping stones and hearts into collateral damage. Cold, calculating, and obscenely wealthy, he believed love was a currency only fools traded in. Then he met Annabel Vaughn, the architect who publicly called him a corporate vulture during a city council meeting. And for the first time in his life, someone looked at him with pure, unfiltered contempt. What he never expected was that her hatred would be the only thing capable of cracking open the vault he'd long ago welded shut around his heart. If you've ever met someone who made you want to be better simply by refusing to let you stay the same, stay with me. Drop a single in the comments right now if you believe even the coldest hearts can burn when they finally meet the right flame. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you're tuned in and ready to dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So, let's get started. Timothy Hargrove's office occupied the entire 78th floor of Hargrove Tower in downtown Chicago. Glass on three sides, Lake Michigan glittering like spilled mercury far below. At 39, he was already a legend in real estate development. The man who could buy a historic building on Tuesday, demolish it by Friday, and have luxury condos pre-sold before the dust settled. Net worth hovered around $18 billion. Reputation: ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. He wore bespoke navy suits the way other men wore armor. Dark hair clipped short at the sides, longer on top, always perfect. Eyes the color of winter steel, cold, assessing, never warm. He didn't smile unless the numbers demanded it. Annabel Vaughn hated him before they ever met. She was 31, 5'6" on a good day. Chestnut hair usually pulled into a practical ponytail. Hazel eyes that flashed when she was angry, which was often lately. Lead architect at a small firm specializing in adaptive reuse, turning old factories into community spaces, warehouses into affordable housing, schools into cultural centers. She believed buildings should serve people, not profit. Timothy Hargrove believed the opposite. 3 months earlier, his firm had submitted plans to demolish the 1920s-era Ravenwood textile mill on the near West Side, one of the last surviving industrial buildings from Chicago's manufacturing golden age. Hargrove planned to replace it with a 42-story glass and steel tower. Luxury apartments, rooftop pools, a private members club on the top floors. The city council was scheduled to vote in 2 weeks. Annabel had grown up 3 blocks from the mill. Her grandfather had worked there for 40 years. She still had his brass pocket watch, engraved with the mill's logo. When she heard about the demolition, she organized a community coalition, gathered 3,000 signatures, and prepared a blistering presentation for the council meeting. The night of the hearing, the council chambers were packed. Timothy arrived last. Black overcoat, 2 assistants trailing like shadows. He didn't sit. He stood near the back, arms folded, expression neutral. Annabel went to the podium. She wore a simple charcoal blazer over a white blouse, hair in its usual ponytail. No makeup except a swipe of lip balm. When the microphone clicked on, her voice was steady. Mr. Hargrove and his team have called the Ravenwood Mill obsolete. They say it's just bricks and rust. I say it's memory. It's jobs our grandparents lost when the factories closed. It's the skyline our children deserve to inherit. Not another glass box that only the 1% can afford to look at. She clicked to the next slide. Archival photos of workers at looms, kids playing in the shadow of the mill, recent shots of the building's beautiful brick arches. Adaptive reuse isn't charity. It's smart. It's sustainable. It honors history while creating housing people can actually live in. Demolishing this building isn't progress. It's erasure. She looked straight at Timothy. First time their eyes had ever met. And you, Mr. Hargrove, you're not a visionary. You're a vulture. You circle dying things and call it opportunity. The room gasped. Timothy didn't flinch. He simply tilted his head, studying her the way he studied balance sheets. When she finished, applause erupted from half the room. Timothy waited until the noise died. Then he walked to the podium. Slow, deliberate, he didn't use notes. Ms. Vaughn is passionate. I respect passion. But passion doesn't pay property taxes or fund schools, or keep Chicago competitive. The Ravenwood site is zoned commercial. My project complies with every ordinance. It will generate $180 million in tax revenue over 10 years, create 1,200 construction jobs, and 400 permanent positions. That's not erasure. That's evolution. He looked directly at Annabelle. History is important. Progress is necessary. Sometimes they can't coexist. My proposal moves forward. He stepped back. The council voted 7-4 in his favor. Demolition permits were approved. Annabelle walked out shaking with rage, with grief. Timothy watched her go. Something unfamiliar stirred in his chest. Not guilt. Curiosity. 2 weeks later, he showed up at her firm's office. Unannounced, no appointment. Annabelle's boss nearly fainted. Timothy asked to speak with her privately. She agreed, only because she wanted to tell him exactly what she thought one more time. They ended up in the small conference room, and no assistants. No recording. Just them. She stood, arms crossed. You won. What more do you want? A trophy? I want to understand, he said simply. Understand what? Why you hate me so much? She laughed. Sharp, incredulous. You're tearing down my grandfather's legacy for condos no one in my neighborhood can afford. That's why. He studied her, long silent. Then, meet me for coffee tomorrow. Neutral ground. 1 hour. No contracts. No cameras. Just talk. Why would I do that? Because you think I'm a monster. And I think you're wrong. Prove it to me. She stared at him. He waited. Finally she said, fine. 1 hour. Then you leave me alone. He nodded once. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. The Bean, Millennium Park. She showed up. He was already there. 2 coffees on the bench, no entourage. Black for him. Oat milk latte for her. She hadn't told him her order. He'd guessed. Saturday she didn't touch the coffee. He spoke first. I read the historical designation application your coalition submitted. It was thorough. Compelling. Then why ignore it? Because the numbers don't lie. The city needs revenue. The mill doesn't generate any. It generates memory. Belonging. That's worth more than money. He looked across the park. People walking dogs. Tourists taking selfies. I don't understand belonging, he said quietly. I never have. She studied him, surprised. You grew up wealthy. I grew up alone. My parents were always closing deals. Boarding schools. Summer programs. I learned early that people stay when it benefits them. Leave when it doesn't. Annabelle softened just a fraction. That's not an excuse to destroy things other people love. I know. Silence stretched. Then he asked, if I gave you 6 months to come up with a viable alternative plan, same site, same zoning compliance, but preserving the mill, would you do it? She blinked. You're serious? Deadly. Why? Because I want to see what happens when someone who hates me tries to change my mind. She searched his face. Found no mockery. Just curiosity. And something else. Something almost human. 6 months, she said finally. 6 months. They shook on it, professional, brief. But when their hands met, neither let go immediately. And that small hesitation changed everything. If the council meeting showdown, Annabelle calling him a vulture to his face, or that charged handshake already has you hooked, drop your thoughts below. The 6-month clock started the day after their coffee meeting at the Bean. Annabelle treated it like a war room assignment. She commandeered the largest conference room at her firm, covered one wall in butcher paper, pinned up every historical photo she could find of the Ravenwood textile mill, black and white shots of workers at looms, union rallies in the 1930s, kids playing stickball in the alley behind the loading dock. She taped zoning maps, tax incentive spreadsheets, sustainability reports, cost analyses for adaptive reuse versus demolition. She worked nights, weekends, skipped meals. Her sister teased her that she was dating the mill more than any human in years. Timothy, meanwhile, did something he hadn't done in 15 years. Nothing. He didn't call, didn't email, didn't send his usual team of junior associates to monitor progress. He gave her the full 6 months. No interference, no pressure, no subtle threats disguised as helpful suggestions. His board asked questions. He shut them down with one sentence. The Ravenwood project is on hold pending new data. They didn't ask again. He told himself it was strategic patience. Let her fail spectacularly, then swoop in with the original plan vindicated. But deep down he knew that wasn't the whole truth. That he kept the photo of her from the council meeting on his phone. Cropped tight on her face, mid-sentence, eyes blazing. He looked at it more often than he cared to admit. 3 months in, mid-September. Annabelle requested a site walkthrough. She texted him directly. He'd given her his personal number the day they shook hands. She'd stared at the contact like it was radioactive before saving it as enemy number 1. Annabelle. Need access to the interior of the mill next Thursday. Structural survey. Can you arrange keys/security? Timothy. I'll meet you there. 10 a.m. Annabelle. I don't need a chaperone. Timothy. You need access. I'm the one who has it. 10 a.m. She replied with a single middle finger emoji. He smiled at his screen. The first genuine smile in weeks. Thursday morning was crisp. The kind of early fall Chicago day where the wind off the lake still carried summer but promised winter. Annabelle arrived first, hard hat under one arm, clipboard in hand, steel toe boots, jeans, flannel shirt tied around her waist over a black tank top. Her ponytail was higher than usual, cheeks flushed from the walk. Timothy arrived exactly on time. Dark jeans, gray cashmere sweater, no tie, no overcoat despite the chill. He carried 2 coffees in a cardboard tray. She eyed the tray. Trying to bribe me? Trying to be civilized. She took the oat milk latte anyway. They walked the perimeter in silence at first. The mill loomed, 6 stories of faded red brick, arched windows boarded up, ivy claiming the lower walls like green veins. Chain-link fence surrounded the property. No trespassing, Hargrove Development, signs every 10 feet. Timothy unlocked the side gate. Inside smelled of dust, old oil, and time. Sunlight sliced through broken windows in dusty shafts. Their footsteps echoed off concrete floors still marked with faint oil stains from decades of machinery. Annabelle moved like she belonged there. Running fingers along brick arches, crouching to inspect foundation cracks, taking photos with her phone, scribbling notes. Timothy followed, hands in pockets, watching her more than the building. She stopped under a massive timber beam, head tilted back. These beams are old-growth Douglas fir. You can't buy wood like this anymore. They're stronger than anything engineered today. He stepped closer. You sound like you're in love. I am. She met his eyes. With what this place could be. Not what you want to turn it into. He didn't argue. They climbed to the 4th floor, rickety metal stairs groaning under their weight. Up there the space opened, double-height ceilings, rows of cast-iron columns, massive windows facing the river. Annabelle walked to the center, spread her arms. Imagine this as a community atrium, natural light, indoor garden, seating, place for people to gather, not stare at their phones in glass boxes 40 stories up. Timothy watched her, really watched. The way sunlight caught in her hair, the passion in her voice, the absolute certainty that what she was describing mattered more than any spreadsheet. Something tightened in his chest. He spoke before he could stop himself. Why do you care so much? She lowered her arms, turned to him. Because someone has to. If people like you keep winning, eventually there'll be nothing left worth remembering. He stepped closer. Close enough that the space between them felt charged. And if I told you I'm starting to wonder whether you're right? She searched his face. You're not. I might be. She laughed. Short, disbelieving. You're Timothy Hargrove. You don't change your mind. I'm changing it right now. Her breath caught. He lifted a hand. Slow, careful. Brushed a strand of hair from her cheek that had escaped the ponytail. She didn't flinch. Didn't move away. Just stared up at him. Eyes wide, guarded, curious. You hate me, he said quietly. I did. Do you still? She swallowed. I don't know what I feel anymore. His thumb lingered on her cheek. That's progress. She stepped back. Small, deliberate. We still have 3 months. He nodded. 3 months. They left the mill separately. But something had shifted. The air between them no longer felt like open hostility. It felt like possibility. And danger. The next 2 months were a strange dance. They met weekly, always at the mill, always during daylight, always professional. She showed him revised plans, preserving 70% of the original structure, converting the main floor into mixed-use retail and community space. Upper floors into mid-income apartments with rent caps, rooftop solar and green space. She brought engineers, historians, cost estimators. She argued with data. She argued with passion. She argued until he had no rebuttals left. He listened, he asked questions. Not to trap her, but to understand. He started bringing lunch. Simple things. Sandwiches from a deli near the site, bottled water, fruit. They ate sitting on overturned crates, dust motes dancing in the light. One afternoon in late November. Snow flurrying outside the broken windows. He asked, "Why nursing school?" She paused mid-bite of turkey club. Grandfather got black lung from the mill. No one helped him. Doctors were expensive. Insurance denied half his claims. I watched him die slowly. I promised myself I'd never let anyone else feel that helpless. Timothy set his sandwich down. "I'm sorry." She shrugged, old pain worn smooth. "It's why I fight. Buildings can hurt people too. When they're torn down without thought. When they're built only for profit." He looked at her, long, quiet. "I'm starting to see that." She studied him. "Are you?" "Yes." Silence wrapped around them, soft, different. She stood. "I should go. I have class." He stood too. "Annabelle." She turned. He stepped closer. "I don't hate you," he said quietly. She gave a small, surprised laugh. "That's progress." He reached out, slow, tucked the same stray strand behind her ear again. This time she let him. His fingers lingered, her breath hitched. He leaned in, just a fraction. She didn't pull away. Their lips met. Tentative at first, testing, then deeper. Her hands found his sweater. Fisting the cashmere, his slid to her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was years of restraint meeting years of fury. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she stared up at him. "That was a mistake, was it?" She stepped back. "We still have 6 weeks left on the deal." He nodded. 6 weeks. She walked away, fast, not looking back. He watched her go. Touched his lips, smiled, slow, real, dangerous. The war wasn't over. It had just changed battlefields. The final month was torture. They met twice more. Professional, distant, no touching. But the air crackled. Every glance lasted too long. Every accidental brush of fingers felt electric. On the last day of the 6 months, December 15th, she presented the final proposal in his office. Full-color renderings. Detailed budgets. Community endorsements. Tax increment financing projections showing the project could break even without luxury pricing. She stood at the head of his conference table. Poised, professional. Timothy sat alone. No assistants, no board. When she finished, he didn't speak for a long moment. Then, "It's brilliant." She exhaled. "Thank you." He stood, walked around the table, stopped in front of her. "I'm not approving the original plan." Her eyes widened. "You're not demolishing?" "I'm approving yours. With one condition." She braced. "What?" "You let me fund it. Not as charity. As partnership. Equal equity. You run the vision. I handle the money." She stared. "Why?" "Because you were right. And because I don't want this to end." She searched his face. "Timothy." He cupped her face, gentle this time. "I'm in love with you, Annabelle Vaughn. I've been falling since the day you called me a vulture in front of the entire city council. I don't want to fight you anymore. I want to build with you." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "You're serious?" "Deadly." She laughed, soft, teary. "I hated you so much. I know. I still kind of do." He smiled. "Good. Keeps things interesting." She rose on her toes, kissed him, slow, deep, surrendering. When they parted, she whispered, "Partnership it is." He pulled her close. "Partnership forever." Outside the windows, Chicago glittered, cold, bright, indifferent. Inside the 78th floor, Two people who had started as enemies finally chose something better, and the heart that had been locked for 15 years finally opened, is almost equal to. If that mill walked through tension, the first charged kiss amid dust in history, or Timothy's quiet, "I'm in love with you" confession after 6 months of slow burn surrender made your heart do flips. Tell me in the comments below. The partnership agreement was signed 3 days after Timothy's confession in his office. It was a simple document. 10 pages. No legalese traps. Drafted by Annabelle's pro bono lawyer friend instead of Timothy's army of corporate attorneys. Equal equity. Joint decision-making on design and community impact. Timothy handled financing and permits. Annabelle oversaw vision, contractors, and resident input. The Ravenwood Mill would become Ravenwood Commons. 180 units of mixed-income housing, 40% affordable, ground-floor community center with free after-school programs, a public atrium, rooftop garden, and solar panels that would make the building net zero energy. The press release went out jointly, 2 paragraphs, no fanfare. Hargrove Development and architect Annabelle Vaughn today announced a collaborative redevelopment of the historic Ravenwood Textile Mill. The project preserves the building's architectural integrity while creating sustainable, accessible housing and community space for the near west side. No mention of love. No mention of the 6-month war that had ended in a kiss among dust and old beams. But Chicago noticed. The community coalition that had fought Timothy now invited him to meetings. Wary but willing. Reporters called Annabelle for quotes. She gave measured, professional answers that never once mentioned the man who had once been her enemy. Timothy's board grumbled about soft metrics and social experimentation, but the projected ROI still cleared 14%, even with the affordability mandates. They let it ride. Privately, things were messy. They didn't rush into anything physical after that first kiss. Both knew the stakes were too high. Professional reputations, the project itself, the fragile trust they'd only just begun to build. They kept meetings formal. Lunches were quick. Evenings were separate, her in her Logan Square walk-up grading papers for her part-time teaching gig at the community college. Him in his Gold Coast penthouse staring at renderings and wondering why sleep no longer came easily unless he pictured her face. But the tension built anyway. Every time their hands brushed passing blueprints. Every time their eyes met across a conference table longer than necessary. Every time she laughed at something dry he said, and he felt it in his sternum like a second heartbeat. Christmas came. Annabelle invited him to her family's house in Humboldt Park, her parents, her younger brother Marco, a firefighter, her abuela who still called everyone Mijo/Mija, regardless of relation. Timothy showed up in a cashmere coat over jeans and a sweater. No tie, no Rolex, hair slightly mussed from the wind. He carried a bottle of good Rioja and a poinsettia that looked almost embarrassed to be in his hands. Annabelle opened the door. She wore a red sweater and jeans, hair down for once, waves past her shoulders. "You came," she said softly. "You invited me." She stepped aside. Inside smelled of pernil, arroz con gandals, and cinnamon from her mother's temblik. Music played low, salsa, merengue, old-school Hector Lavoe. The house was small, warm, loud. Kids ran between legs. Her abuela kissed Timothy on both cheeks before he could introduce himself. "El novio guapo," she declared. Annabelle translated with a blush. "She says you're the handsome boyfriend." Timothy smiled, real, unguarded. "I'll take it." Dinner was chaos in the best way. They squeezed around 2 pushed-together tables. Plates passed. Stories overlapped. Marco grilled Timothy about his cars. "You really have a McLaren?" Annabelle's father asked quiet, pointed questions about the Ravenwood project, whether the affordable units would truly stay affordable. Timothy answered honestly, no defensiveness. When Abuela insisted Timothy try her flan, he took a bite and closed his eyes. "This is dangerous," he said. Everyone laughed. Later, on the back porch while the house thumped with music and laughter, Annabelle found him leaning on the railing, staring at the alley snow. "Too much?" she asked. "No. Perfect." She stepped beside him. "You fit." He looked down at her. "I've never fit anywhere. You do here." He reached for her hand. Slow, careful. She let him take it. They stood like that until Marco poked his head out. Yo, lovebirds. Abuela wants another dance with the tall one. Timothy laughed. Low, surprised. Annabelle squeezed his hand. Go. She's relentless. He went. Annabelle watched from the doorway, her billionaire in her grandmother's arms, trying to follow the steps of a merengue he'd never learned, laughing when he stepped on toes, bowing dramatically when the song ended. Something cracked open inside her. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of it. The thaw didn't last. January brought reality. The city inspector flagged structural concerns, water damage in the east wing, questionable load-bearing capacity on floors 4 and 5. Repairs would add $8.2 million to the budget. Timothy's lenders balked at the increased risk. The board renewed pressure. Cut the affordable units to 25%. Push the height to 48 stories. Make it pencil. Timothy refused. Annabelle spent 3 weeks redesigning, shaving costs without sacrificing integrity. She presented the revised plan in his office, charts, 3D models, sweat on her brow from sleepless nights. He approved every change. But the tension grew. They argued, first professional, then personal. One late February night, 11:47 p.m., still in the conference room. You're compromising the vision, she said, voice tight. I'm saving the project. You're saving your board's approval. He slammed the folder down. I'm saving your dream, she stared. My dream doesn't survive if it costs people their homes. He stepped closer. I'm not the enemy anymore, Annabelle. Aren't you? The words hung. She grabbed her coat. I need air. She left. He didn't follow. 3 days of silence. Then she texted, we need to talk. Not at your office. He replied immediately. My place. Tonight. 8. She arrived at 8:03, jeans, hoodie, eyes red from crying or exhaustion or both. He opened the door shirt-sleeved, sleeves rolled, no tie, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. They stood in his living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights glittering like fallen stars, and no preamble. She spoke first. I'm scared. Of what? Of this. Of us. Of what happens when the project ends. When you don't need me anymore. He crossed the room, slow. I need you more than the project. She shook her head. You don't know how to need people. You know how to use them. The words landed like a slap. He flinched. Then, quietly, you're right. I did. For years. But I'm learning. With you. Because you won't let me do anything else. She looked up, tears shining. I don't want to be the woman who fixes you. I don't want to be fixed. I want to be better. For you. With you. Silence. Then she stepped forward. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered. And it terrifies me. He cupped her face, gentle, reverent. I've been in love with you since you called me a vulture in front of God and the city council. She laughed. Wet. Surprised. That was a good line. It was the truth. He kissed her. Slow at first, then deeper, hungrier. She kissed him back. Fingers in his hair, body pressing close. Clothes came off in a trail from living room to bedroom. They made love like people who had spent months holding back. Urgent, tender, desperate. Afterward, tangled in sheets, city lights painting stripes across their skin. She whispered, Don't break my heart, Timothy. He kissed her forehead. Never. But hearts break anyway. March brought the final inspection. The east wing failed, again. Engineers said the damage was worse than anticipated. Repairs now $14 million. Lenders pulled conditional commitment. Board called emergency meeting. Timothy walked in alone. They gave him an ultimatum. Cut affordable units to 20%. Increase height. Or they would vote to replace him as lead on the project. He looked around the table. Men and women he'd known for a decade. Then he stood. I'm out. Silence. He continued. I won't sign off on a project that betrays the community we promised. If you want to proceed without me, do it. But my name, and my equity, comes off Ravenwood Commons. He walked out. The board stared. Annabelle was waiting in the lobby, had insisted on coming. She saw his face. What happened? I quit. Her eyes widened. The project is theirs now. If they want it, I won't be part of it. She searched his face. You gave up everything. I gave up the wrong things. I kept the right one. He took her hand. Let's go home. They walked out into March wind, hand in hand, no security detail, no black car waiting. Just them. But the board didn't let go so easily. 2 days later, a story leaked. Hargrove Development ousts CEO over woke project details followed. Anonymous sources claiming Timothy had lost focus, become emotionally compromised, risked shareholder value for personal ideology. The stock dipped 7%. Timothy's phone exploded. He turned it off. Annabelle's phone rang. Reporters, friends, even her old coalition members asking if it was true. She turned hers off too. They spent the weekend in her tiny Logan Square apartment. Takeout, movies, quiet. Monday morning he woke to a text from his former CO. Board is offering you a buyout. $2.1 billion cash for your shares. Walk away clean. He stared at the number. Showed Annabelle. She read it. Then looked at him. What are you going to do? He set the phone down. I'm going to build something new. With you. No board. No shareholders. Just us. She smiled, slow, proud. Then let's build. They started small. A new firm. Vaughn and Hargrove Partners. No tower. No luxury. Adaptive reuse. Community first. Sustainable. First project. A small factory in Pilsen, turning it into 42 units of truly affordable housing plus a daycare and job training center. NO headlines, NO press release. Just work. They moved in together, her apartment first, then a modest 3-bedroom in Logan Square with a rooftop they turned into a garden. Timothy learned to cook, badly at first. Annabelle learned to sleep without the sound of the L train. They fought. About budgets, about timelines, about whose turn it was to take out the trash. They made up. Always. One night in July, 14 months after the mill walkthrough. He woke at 3 a.m. to find her sitting on the rooftop, knees to chest, staring at the skyline. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Bad dream? She shook her head. Just thinking about how far we've come, from hating each other to this. He sat beside her, pulled her close. I still hate one thing. She looked up. What? That it took me 39 years to find you. She laughed, soft, teary. I hated you pretty thoroughly for 6 months. Worth it. He kissed her, slow, deep, certain. When they parted she whispered, I love you, Timothy Hargrove. I love you, Annabelle Vaughn. The city glittered below, cold, bright, alive. Up on the roof, 2 people who had once been enemies finally rested. Not in wealth. Not in power. In each other. And it was everything. If the board ultimatum, Timothy walking away from $2.1 billion, the quiet rooftop moment where Annabelle admits she's falling, or the simple I love you exchange under Chicago stars hit you right in the feels. Please share in the comments below. The breaking point came without warning on a gray Thursday in late April, exactly 19 months after Annabelle had first called Timothy a vulture in front of the city council. They had spent the winter and early spring building Vaughn and Hargrove Partners from the ground up. No tower headquarters. No marble lobby. Just a converted warehouse loft in Pilsen. Exposed brick, long tables, white boards covered in sketches and timelines. The first project, the old Pilsen canning factory, was 60% complete. 42 units of truly affordable housing. A daycare center on the ground floor, job training classrooms, rooftop solar array, community garden plots already sprouting early greens. The building had been saved from demolition. Families were already pre-approved to move in come September. Timothy had never been happier. He woke every morning beside Annabelle. Her hair across his pillow, her hand on his chest, her quiet breathing the only sound he needed to start the day. They drove to the site together in her beat-up Honda Civic. She refused to let him buy her a new car. I like my car. It has character. They argued over paint swatches, laughed at contractor jokes, kissed behind scaffolding when no one was looking. But happiness, like old brick, can hide cracks. The cracks appeared in March when the Pilsen project's final financing round required one last bridge loan. $6.8 million to cover unexpected foundation work and rising material costs. Timothy's personal accounts could cover it easily, but his former board, still bitter from his departure, had frozen the last tranche of his buyout proceeds pending a final audit of his equity stake. Lawyers estimated the dispute could drag into next year. Timothy didn't tell Annabelle at first. He told himself it was temporary. He could float the money from liquid investments. The project would finish on time. Then the city inspector flagged a permitting issue, minor, but enough to delay occupancy certificates by 3 months. The pre-approved families were notified. Some cried on the phone with Annabelle. Some got angry. One mother, a single parent with 2 kids under 5, showed up at the site in tears, asking if her children would have a home by winter. Annabelle held her, promised they would fix it. She didn't sleep that night. Timothy found her at 3 a.m. on the loft couch. Laptop open, spreadsheets glowing blue on her face, eyes red that he knelt in front of her. "Talk to me." She looked up, exhausted, furious, scared. "We're short, again, and the families are counting on us. I promised them September. I can't break that promise." He took her hands. "We won't." "How?" "Your board is holding the money hostage. My firm has nothing left in reserves. We're tapped out." He exhaled. "I'll sell the Gold Coast penthouse. Cash in some private equity stakes. We'll cover it." She stared. "That's your safety net." "You're my safety net." She shook her head. "I don't want you to lose everything because of this project. Because of me. I'm not losing anything. I'm choosing." She pulled her hands away. "You say that now, but what happens when the next crisis comes? When the next family needs more than we can give? When you wake up one day and realize you gave up billions for a girl who once hated you?" The words landed like a blade. He stood slowly. "Is that what you think? That I'll regret this? I think you're used to winning. And this?" She gestured at the loft, the blueprints, the half-dead plants on the windowsill. "This isn't winning. This is surviving. Scraping by. I don't want you to resent me when the shine wears off." He stared at her, long, silent, then quiet, dangerous. "You still think I'm the same man who wanted to tear down the mill?" She looked away. "I think you're still learning who you are without the empire." The silence stretched, sharp, painful. He walked to the window, stared at the city lights. When he spoke again, his voice was low. "I sold the penthouse 2 weeks ago, closed on a cash buyer. Money's already wired to the project account. The bridge loan is covered. Occupancy stays on schedule." She turned. "You what?" "I didn't tell you because I knew you'd fight me, but I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you, I choose this. I choose you. Every day. Even the hard ones." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." She stood, walked to him, wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, pressed her forehead to his back. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm scared. Of losing you. Of this falling apart. Of proving everyone right. That I dragged you down." He turned, cupped her face. "You lifted me up. Every single day since you called me a vulture. You made me remember there's more to life than balance sheets." She laughed. Wet, broken. "I still kind of hate how good you are at this." He smiled, small, real. "Good. Keeps me honest." They kissed, slow, deep, full of everything they hadn't said. But the storm wasn't over. The next morning, Timothy received a certified letter from his former board. They were filing suit, claiming breach of fiduciary duty during his final months as CEO, alleging that his personal relationship with Annabelle had influenced project decisions and cost shareholders millions in potential upside. They wanted $450 million in damages. And they wanted the Ravenwood Commons project halted pending litigation. Timothy read the complaint in silence, then handed it to Annabelle. She read it, her hands shook. "They're trying to bury us. They're trying to scare us." She looked up. "What do we do?" He took the papers. "We fight." The next 3 months were war. Lawyers, depositions, motions, discovery requests that demanded every email, every text, Every meeting note from the past 2 years. Reporters camped outside the Pilsen site. Protesters, some paid, some genuine, marched with signs accusing Annabelle of sleeping her way to funding. Anonymous accounts posted doctored photos, old emails taken out of context, rumors that she'd manipulated Timothy for personal gain. Annabelle's family rallied. Marco stood outside the site every weekend with a sign that read, Ravenwood Commons equals homes, not lawsuits. Her parents brought food to the construction crew. Abuela prayed novenas every night. Timothy sold more assets. Private jet, art collection, vacation properties he rarely used. Cash kept the project moving. Crews worked overtime. Families moved in on schedule, first wave in September, second in October. But the stress showed. Annabelle lost weight, slept little, cried in the shower when she thought he couldn't hear. Timothy stopped sleeping altogether some nights, pacing the loft, staring at legal documents, wondering if he dragged her into something she'd never recover from. One night in early December, snow falling thick outside the windows, he found her curled on the couch, staring at the ceiling. He sat beside her, took her hand. "We can stop," he said quietly. "Settle. Walk away. Let them have the win. We can start over somewhere else." She turned to him, eyes red, fierce. "No," he searched her face. "Why not?" "Because if we quit now, they win. They prove that people like us, people who fight for something more than profit, can be crushed. I won't let them write that story." He exhaled. "You're exhausted. So are you." He pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry I brought this on you." She pressed her face to his chest. "You didn't. I chose this. I chose you. I'd choose you again." They held each other until the snow stopped. The trial date was set for February. But the climax came sooner. January 12th, final pretrial hearing. Timothy and Annabelle sat in the courtroom gallery, hand in hand, no lawyers beside them today. Their legal team had advised against speaking, but Timothy had insisted on being present. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed motions, then she looked up. "Counsel for the plaintiff has requested a continuance. New evidence has surfaced." Timothy tensed. Annabelle squeezed his hand. The plaintiff's lead attorney stood. "Your Honor, we have obtained internal communications from Mr. Hargrove's former executive assistant showing that he directed funds from Hargrove Development to personal accounts during the transition period, funds that were later used to finance the Ravenwood project. We allege embezzlement and breach of duty." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Timothy's face went blank. Annabelle looked at him, questioning. He shook his head once, barely perceptible. No, the judge peered over her glasses. "Mr. Hargrove, you're present. Do you wish to respond?" Timothy stood, slowly. "Your Honor, I've been accused of many things in my career. Greed, ruthlessness, ambition. But I have never stolen. Not 1 cent. Every dollar that went into Ravenwood Commons came from my personal accounts, post-departure, post-buyout. I have bank statements, wire confirmations, tax filings, all available to the court." The attorney smirked. "We have emails that suggest otherwise." Timothy looked straight at the judge. "Then show them." The attorney hesitated. The judge raised a brow. "Counsel?" The attorney cleared his throat. "We will submit them in the next filing." The judge nodded. "Very well. Hearing adjourned. Next date February 18th for trial. Discovery closes in 10 days. No further delays." Gavel. Timothy and Annabelle walked out into the hallway. Reporters surged. He put his arm around her. Protective shield. They pushed through. In the car, her Civic, parked 2 blocks away. He finally spoke. "They're bluffing. There are no emails. I never directed company funds. They're trying to force a settlement." Annabelle stared out the windshield. "What if they have something? What if someone forged? They won't win on forgery, but they can drag this out for years. Drain us. Delay the next project. Make every family who moves into Ravenwood Commons feel like they're living in a scandal." She turned to him. "Then what do we do?" He looked at her, long, steady. "We go public. Full transparency. Every document. Every bank statement. Every email. We let the world see the truth. And we let them decide who's lying. She exhaled. That means exposing everything. Our relationship. The money. All of it. Yes. She reached for his hand. Then let's expose it. They spent the next 4 days preparing. Annibal's team built a website. Simple. Clean. RavenwoodTruth.com. Every financial record. Every timeline. Scanned letters. Wire transfers. Emails between Timothy and his former assistant. All innocuous. A timeline of the project from council meeting to groundbreaking. Photos of families moving in. Testimonials.nopr spin. Just facts. Timothy wrote the statement himself. One page. To the people of Chicago. I spent most of my life believing profit was the only measure of success. Then I met Annabel Vaughn. She showed me that buildings should serve people, not the other way around. When my former board tried to force changes that would have broken that promise, I walked away. They are now suing me for hundreds of millions, claiming I misused funds. They are lying. Every dollar in Ravenwood Commons came from my personal assets after I left Hargrove Development. Here is the proof. Judge for yourself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for fairness. For the families who live here. For the city that deserves better. Timothy Hargrove. They hit publish at 9:14 a.m. on January 17 th. Within hours the site crashed from traffic. Reporters called. Cable news picked it up. Social media exploded. By evening the former board issued a terse denial. But the damage was done. The next morning, January 18th, Timothy's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. His former COO, voice tight. Turn on Channel 7. Timothy did. Live press conference. The board chairman stood at a podium. Behind him, enlarged screenshots of emails, forged, but convincing at first glance. Then the chairman said, "We have no choice but to pursue this matter to protect shareholder interests." The camera panned. Standing to the side, stone-faced, arms crossed, was Timothy's former executive assistant. The same one who had found the emails. Annabel watched beside him. Then quietly, "That's her. The assistant." Timothy stared. Then he laughed, low, bitter. "She was always loyal to the board. I should have seen it." Annabel took his hand. "What now?" He looked at her. "Now we finish what we started." They went to the site. Families were moving in. Boxes, laughter, kids running through the atrium. Annabel walked among them, hugging mothers, high-fiving kids, promising the daycare would open on time. Timothy stood back, watching. One little girl, maybe 6, tugged his sleeve. "Are you the man who saved our house?" He crouched. "I'm the man who tried. Your neighbor Annabel is the one who really saved it." The girl looked at Annabel. "She's pretty." Timothy smiled. "She's everything." That night, back in the loft, Annabel found him on the rooftop, snow falling again. He stood at the railing. Coat open, no gloves, staring at the skyline. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "You okay?" He covered her hands with his. "I think so." She rested her cheek against his back. "We're going to win this." "I know." She turned him around, looked up. "I love you. Not the billionaire. Not the developer. You. The man who chose to walk away."
The man who chose me.
He cupped her face. "I love you. The woman who hated me enough to make me better. The woman who still challenges me every day. The woman I want to spend the rest of my life proving myself to." Tears slipped down her cheeks. He kissed them away, then kissed her, slow, deep, certain. When they parted, she whispered, "Marry me." He froze. She laughed, soft, teary. "Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, when this is over, when we've built everything we dreamed of. I want to stand in front of everyone and say I choose you, every day, forever." He pulled her close. "Yes." They stood there, snow falling around them, city lights blurring through tears and flakes. The storm wasn't over, but they were no longer afraid of it. Because whatever came next, lawsuits, headlines, losses, wins, they would face it together, and that was the only victory that mattered. If that rooftop proposal in the snow, Timothy choosing to go public with full transparency. The little girl asking if he saved our house, or Annabelle's quiet "marry me," after everything they'd survived wrecked you in the best way. Please tell me in the comments below. February 18th arrived like the final act of a play no one had wanted to end. The courtroom in the Dirksen Federal Building was packed. Reporters crammed in the back rows, community members from the near West Side and Pilsen filling the benches, a few curious suits from Hargrove Development's old guard sitting stiffly near the plaintiff's table. Annabelle sat beside Timothy in the gallery. Her hand in his, fingers laced so tightly the knuckles showed white. She wore the same charcoal blazer from the original council meeting 3 years earlier, hair in its familiar ponytail, no makeup except the faint shimmer of lip balm. Timothy wore a simple navy sweater and dark trousers, no suit, no tie, no armor. They looked like two people who had already fought the war and were now waiting to see if peace would be granted. The judge entered. Everyone stood. She settled, glasses perched on her nose, and called the case. Plaintiff's motion for summary judgment is denied. The court finds sufficient evidence of disputed material facts to proceed to trial. However, she paused, looked over the rim of her glasses at both counsel tables. The court has reviewed the public disclosure submitted by defense last month. The transparency is unusual and compelling. Plaintiff's counsel, do you wish to proceed with the embezzlement claim in light of the documentation provided? The lead attorney for the board stood, tailored suit, expensive watch, confident posture. Your Honor, the emails remain authentic. The defendant's personal funding does not negate the breach during his tenure. The judge raised a hand. I've seen the emails. I've also seen metadata analysis submitted by defense showing timestamps and IP addresses inconsistent with Mr. Hargrove's known devices and access logs. The court has independently verified this with forensic experts. The documents appear to have been altered. Counsel, are you prepared to explain how these emails came into your possession? The attorney faltered. We received them from a former employee acting in good faith. The judge's voice sharpened. Perjury is not good faith, counsel, nor is fabricating evidence. I will be referring this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation into possible fraud on the court and witness tampering. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Timothy's grip on Annabelle's hand tightened. The attorney Saturday, the judge continued. Given the evidence of document fabrication, the court grants defendant's motion to dismiss all claims with prejudice. Plaintiff is ordered to pay defendants reasonable attorney fees and costs. This case is terminated. Gavel, silence, then murmurs, then applause from the back rows. Annabelle turned to Timothy, eyes wide, shining. It's over. He exhaled, long, shaky. It's over. They stood. People surged forward. Marco hugging Annabelle so hard she laughed, her parents shaking Timothy's hand with tears in their eyes, community members thanking him, thanking her, thanking both of them. Outside the courthouse steps, cameras waited. Timothy stopped at the top, pulled Annabelle beside him, raised their joined hands. No statement. Just that. The photo ran on every Chicago news site by evening. Two people, once enemies, now partners, standing together against a gray February sky, hands clasped, heads high. The board issued no apology. They didn't need to. The damage was done to them. Ravenwood Commons opened fully in May. The atrium was filled with sunlight, plants, long tables for community dinners. Kids ran through the hallways. A mural, painted by local artists, covered one wall. Workers at looms fading into families at tables, children planting gardens, the skyline in the background. No glass towers, just brick, warmth, life. Timothy and Annabelle stood on the rooftop garden the day of the grand opening. Solar panels humming softly, raised beds bursting with tomatoes and herbs, string lights ready for evening. Families wandered up, carrying plates, kids chasing each other. Annabelle leaned against the railing. Timothy came up behind her, arms around her waist. Worth it? She asked. He kissed her temple. Every second. She turned in his arms, looked up. I have something for you. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside, 2 plain platinum bands, thinner than their originals, engraved inside with the date the lawsuit was dismissed. 2.18.26. The day we won everything that mattered. She slid one onto his finger beside the original. He slid hers on. Then he dropped to one knee. Right there on the rooftop, with Chicago spread out below and families laughing around them. Annabel Vaughn, he said, voice steady but thick. I spent most of my life thinking. Control was the only way to stay safe. You taught me that letting go is how you finally live. You hated me enough to make me better. You loved me enough to stay. Marry me again. In front of everyone. No secrets. No fear. Just us. Forever. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She laughed, joyful, bright. Yes. She pulled him up, kissed him. Deep, unhurried, witnessed by the city and the people who had fought beside them. When they parted, applause broke out. Families, friends, Marco whooping, Abuela clapping from a folding chair someone had carried up. Timothy laughed. Real, unguarded, Annabel rested her forehead against his. I love you. I love you more. The wedding happened in June, small outdoors at the rooftop garden of Ravenwood Commons, an Black Tie Gala. Just folding chairs, string lights, a playlist of salsa and old R&B, food from Annabel's parents and Abuela, flowers from the community garden. Annabel wore the same white sundress from their first courthouse day, now altered slightly, hemmed shorter, sleeves off the shoulder. Timothy wore gray linen, simple, no tie. They stood under an arch of ivy and fairy lights. Her father walked her down the short aisle. Abuela officiated short ceremony, mostly in Spanish with English translation, full of blessings and laughter. When it came time for vows, Timothy went first. I promise to listen even when I think I'm right. To fight beside you, not against you. To choose people over profit. To choose you every single day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I promise to love you the way you deserve. Fiercely, honestly, forever. Annabel, tears shining, took his hands. I hated you once. I was wrong. You weren't heartless. You were just waiting for someone to show you how to feel. I promise to keep showing you, to challenge you, to hold you when the world feels too heavy, to build with you, not just buildings, but a life, family, future. I promise to love you, every version of you, forever. Rings exchanged, same platinum bands, now joined by thin diamond eternity rings. Timothy had surprised her with the week before. They kissed, slow, deep, certain. The rooftop erupted, cheers, whistles, kids throwing petals from the garden. Later, after cake, after dancing, after hugs, Timothy and Annabel stood at the railing again. City lights glittered below. She leaned against him. Still worth it? He kissed her hair. More than ever. She smiled. Me too. Years passed. Ravenwood Commons became a model. Other developers copied the approach, but none with the same heart. Vaughn and Hargrove Partners grew, not into an empire, but into a network. 8 projects across Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit. Always community first. Always sustainable. Always people over profit. They had a daughter, Elena, born 2 years after the wedding. Dark curls, hazel eyes, fierce like her mother, curious like her father. She grew up running through construction sites, learning to hammer nails before she learned to read, calling Timothy Poppy and Annabel Mommy. Timothy never returned to the old world. He didn't need to. He had built something better. One evening. Elena 7, rooftop garden in full bloom. They sat together on a blanket. Elena pointed at the skyline. Why do some buildings look sad, Poppy? Timothy looked where she pointed. Glass towers, cold, empty at street level. Because they were built for money, not for people. Annabel rested her head on his shoulder. But ours aren't. No, Timothy said. Ours aren't. Elena crawled into his lap. Will you build me a house someday? He kissed her forehead. I already did. He looked at Annabel. She smiled soft, knowing. They watched the sun set, gold bleeding into purple, city lights flickering on one by one. Timothy pulled Annabel closer, whispered against her hair. Thank you. For what? For hating me enough to save me. She laughed quietly. You're welcome. He kissed her. Slow, deep, grateful. Elena giggled. Gross. They laughed. The city kept moving below. Alive, imperfect, beautiful. Up on the roof. 3 hearts beat in time. A family. A legacy. A love that had started with hate and ended with everything. And it was more than enough. If this long journey, from public hatred to private rooftop vows, from demolished dreams to built homes, from a heartless billionaire to a father kissing his daughter's forehead, left you full, hopeful, maybe even a little teary, please share one moment that stayed with you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.